Alright, I just thought I'd make, hopefully, what will be not too long of a video with some basic, I think, theory crafting and some feedback just on one day's worth of running through the map, trying out some different things, trying to figure out what the respective CT and T side meta will be. And I'll try to just keep this into kind of an A middle and then B section for any quick scrubbing through. So I'll just start with T side. Approaching the A bomb sites. I've seen a lot of discourse around this basically being either a timing tax or a movement tax. The obvious aspect is that you have the sound tax, and what I've just accidentally displayed is I think what some people are missing. What I also originally missed when I was looking at this window, which was that I was trying to come at it from a diagonal angle, and if you're coming at it from like a diagonal curved angle, which the map kind of naturally leads you to come at it from a diagonal angle, it's very hard to do that, which is to just jump through crouched and hit your head. And that obviously makes a pretty sizable difference in not only your vulnerability, but also your timing onto this peak, which, if I remember correctly on the brief timing tests I've done, this is actually a much more contested peak than the obvious CT holding top mid. This kind of door-to-door fight in middle, which is kind of the adjacent fight, and it's also the fight that you would have as a T punishing a CT that was jumping out window and deciding to push mid, or, deciding to maybe round that corner and play this angle very quickly. So this timing is pretty important, and having the ability to kind of hit this window in the right angle is going to be pretty important for the Ts. And I can already kind of imagine going out of spawn saying, all right, boys, let's just rush A. The fastest way to A is obviously through the window, and the fastest way to the window is up this ladder. So you're going to optimally send 5 people up this ladder, and you can imagine people are going to do what I've just done immediately, which is miss the strafe, either land over here, or like just completely miss the ladder, or there's going to be a lot of people who don't know ladder movements perfectly, so instead of holding, W and D up the ladder, they're just going to hold W, they're going to go slowly, and then your entire rush timing is boomed because one guy went up a ladder too slow. I don't necessarily think that's a problem. I just think that this is going to be something that inevitably happens if the map structure lays out as it currently does, incentivizing an A rush through this method. And while we're on the discussion of the window, I'll just display 2 quick things. I've already seen some discussion on how easy it is to kind of just, okay, yeah, the window's right there, I'm going to wall bang. That's obviously a risk. If you hit the jump timing, you're not as much as a risk, but I can see this definitely be something CTs would optimally want to do in the mid stages of the round so they don't feel vulnerable. The other thing is, I think his leg is a bit clipped incorrectly, but hopefully this won't be too bad. You can kind of already see that I can see a lot of the window, but it's also possible to jump on top of a teammate's head. You can see I'm on top of the T's head here, but crouching, and it's very easy to see someone from this point. The only reason I bring this up as a part of feedback is because the design, whether intentionally or unintentionally, I would assume intentionally, has created a bunch of invisible skybox. There's one up here that then I don't know. I don't know mapping tools well enough to display this box, but the kind of movement skybox angles down to at some point be lower over here than it is over here. And it looks like there's been some effort to prevent ridiculous overpass style boosts seeing over this door in particular. And I still think if the design of those skyboxes was to prevent boost to see into this window, I believe that you can still see into that window from boosting while on a teammate's head. It will still make the boosted player forcibly crouch. But if you're on a teammate's head, it still lets you get up here. You can very easily see into this door. And if this T was just over to the right a little bit, I'm too lazy to actually do it, you'd get a much better angle. The last thing I'll mention with this window section is the fact that I believe in my testing, the CTs have a timing with which you can immediately route out this window, and if you have really good movement, immediately kind of just right and left click, throw a Molotov on the run that will land, hit the window, and then you can kind of swing with it. So at the moment, like I said, without 5v5 gameplay, I think it's pretty pointless to speculate on whether this is a good or bad thing for the overall map design. But you could very easily imagine that this area is pretty important for the T side, like I said earlier, to timing contest not only mid pushes, but also contest this door peek from CTs. I believe that if a CT team wants it bad enough, it should be almost impossible for the Ts to actually keep this door area. Even with just one person, which is a pretty, non-committal take, it's one person, one molly. you can kind of easily imagine this molly will Molotov this door. Maybe one person or two people jump through the window, but they're flying through the air. You peek, you kill them, or you do enough damage and they die to the Molotov. Even just adding one more person routing behind this other player to just maybe just like stand still, throw an HE, and then swing with them, completely destroys the T's chances from taking this map control without risking an immediate round loss. So, like I said, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. The T's obviously have the second A option. I've seen some discourse around it basically being Tuscan A sites tunnel, but a winery instead of just a sewer system, which I kind of get from how long you have to walk to make it silent. The fact that the map gives you 2 entrances to a bomb site without you ever having to expose yourself to the CTs, with the exclusion of a CT door peek right here, is probably enough value of the second entryway to not worry about the timing too much. But that's a long rant to say that the CTs, I believe, from just basic theory crafting, have a almost unstoppable ability to contest this map control, and probably can take it every round if they want it bad enough. So this is something to keep in mind. Moving forward to just more general A site T execute stuff. This is definitely just more on the Theorycraft side, but if you want a Molotov for the back quad position, if you line up with the E-box, aim at that blue light, and then just kind of run forward, this being this blue light up to the cloud line. And this is actually a good time to mention, I really love, and I don't know if this is temporary or permanent, I really love that the skybox and the clouds do not move. I think it's pretty much standard on the Valve side. When you look up and look at the clouds, they are moving to imitate realistic cloud movements in a way. But I do value the fact that the skybox has kind of frozen clouds right now, so that you can actually line up grenades with them. I think that's the only one I've used with clouds. Actually, I think I'm going to show another nade set really quick that actually does use the clouds, but good time to mention that. And then this is just a basic site wall execute that I've kind of just theory crafted. This is probably not completely optimized, but the idea here, if I can find this last, yeah, it's this one. The idea here is that you have a smoke landing on the left side balcony, a smoke landing on this ledge in a way that it spreads down a bit, and then you have a smoke smoking off this wall. And maybe you don't throw this far right one, you just throw the other two. But this is the CT's perspective here, and what this definitely prevents with the new volumetric smokes is a player playing down on this ramp. You can use this not only to scale out up top, but this gives this player, if this is all smoked, it gives you a nice lurk up to something like the barrel, so that when these smokes go away, you can, or while the smokes are up, you can just focus on clearing out this. Because you can imagine, if the T's do get this piece of map control here, you could do things like, I actually did think, there's these 2 parallel, like really small lines here, probably can't see in the video, but if you line it up and then jump and then left click throw, that's a nice little jump throw Molotov. You got to be careful, because with the new coding, the way that Valve has done coding with jump throws, if you just immediately jump and then if you throw it just a tad bit too early, the game will still act like you wanted a jump throw, even though you were in midair for a decent amount. So you got to make sure you're falling pretty much, or you're right at the peak of your jump before letting go. So you can do that, and then maybe you do some kind of jump throw flashbang, or you have someone from the window or farther back throw a flash to try to clear this close right area. But coming out, you're going to have a disadvantageous fight for the first TN no matter what, unless the flash is really solid. So one way to deal with that is to throw at least, the very least, 1 and 2 of these smokes to smoke off what is pretty much the entire ramp view of your lurking players, whether it's 1 or 2. And then this player can lurk out with his back turned, feeling pretty secure, and clear out all of this close angle. And if you're doing enough map control pressure, it's going to be really hard for these CTs to take their eyes off this door. So just a bit of theory crafting as to how to approach the A site as a default rather than just a pure execute, making this player your default player, and making, whoever is throwing these smokes and whoever then throws any mollies and flashes, that's more so the execute. You can, imagine that these players drop their smokes back to the player who's lining up these smokes. And just to quickly discuss this lineup, if you're here for the actual theory crafting, which probably will not be relevant by the time this map receives updates, but I am at this stain right here on the right side up just a bit. It's not super sensitive. Your goal is to just land it right at this ledge, pretty much. The second lineup originally was supposed to land in between this box here, but I found that it's a bit better if it just lands a bit outside, so I just aim to the right a bit of what stain shows this stain right here, this crack in the wall, and then another crack in the wall here or stain above this blue light is how I find it. And I just left click throw, it bounces and lands off the ledge right here, or onto the ledge. I believe that is it specifically to the A site, so we can transition to mid a bit, and it's a good time to talk about, I really enjoy, I'm sure this is being talked to death, but I enjoy that this is open to the air, because it not only allows this player to contribute in a meaningful way with mid flashes, or like an A site aggressive flash, I suppose, but it also allows for smokes like the two I'll show now. One of them is just you come to the end of this gate, there's a pretty obvious dark smudge in the wall right there, and if you just left click throw in that area, it will bounce and it will smoke off the window. And in the same vein, if you wanted to create an A rush that smokes off the rotation position, because typically when you're rushing, you're not really interested in smoking the site. You're more interested in smoking the rotation position because you're gonna beat the rotations you want to be smoked off on the retake. This might miss because it's been a while since I've thrown this, but this is aim at this crack. There's kind of this middle space between this bunch of roses and the wall. Don't want to really aim at the middle, aim a little bit to the left, I believe, of the middle, so that you dodge the awning, and indeed that is how I wanted it to land, or at least this is the start of a Theorycraft for it. But it smokes off this window such that you can kind of cheese it if you get close enough, but you're going to be really exposed, and I'm sure if somebody messes around they can find maybe a little bit of a better lineup. But this is more of a Theorycraft. Can we do an A rush with executes on window out of spawn? Finding one for door is probably a bit harder because it's covered. You'd want to throw it from an angle that's more so over here, and by the time you get all over here and throwing it, your players are already into the bomb site. So maybe someone will find something, but that's something I found for window, for both here and back here. Transitioning more into this, I guess people might call this dumpster, people might call this U-Haul or just con, but this is kind of nitpicky. But there are a couple of aspects of the map, I'll talk about one later, that the geometry is a little bit bouncy. And, if this was like in Spawn or something, I don't think I would even mention it. But because you can very easily imagine that this will be an angle people will want to take, it's a nice off angle that you can kind of dance on and like, okay, I'm not peeking, no one's there, I'm not peeking. Okay, someone moved into the angle, they're not looking at me now, I shoot them. With how bouncy this is, it's not only going to be a little bit of irritating for the person on it, but also people trying to aim at head level on them. So if this angle is supposed to be a thing, I would recommend smoothing this out, or just removing this one, and like you're really not going to be able to see anything from this one anyway, so it won't really matter. But now's, I guess, a good time to transition more into just mid. I'll start with T-side approaches to mid because I don't have a whole lot to suggest right now for T-side mid control other than what is a standard of its mid window smoke. So I originally started up here saying, okay, I mean, this seems like a pretty decent mid window smoke. Just get to this corner, super easy to remember, and then aim at this corner up here, and it will bounce. And whether the glass is broken or not, obviously the glass is not broken right now, but if the glass remains unbroken, this will still work, and I'll show off the other lineup that works indeed with both unbroken and broken glass. The problem that I had with the old lineup up here was that the timing was a little bit later than you'd want. This next lineup I show my friend found, but if you get up onto this ledge, like right above this light, and you aim in between this and this, but more so to the left to be careful. I think if you aim right in the middle, it'll work. Letting him over the left and running jump throw bind. This is, I believe, the fastest mid-window smoke that will exist for the T side. I think this still lands a bit behind when your fastest teammate can make it into this mid peak. Maybe a second or two late, but I believe this is the fastest that's possible. And I also, I've seen a lot of discourse on what is, I think, the biggest risk the map takes, which is you have to cross mid-window in some way. And in some way, you have to cross it twice. There are two sightlines here the mid-window can see you cross to get to B. I don't really have anything to add other than I think it's interesting. And, 5v5 testing is where the actual proof will come in. I will show a CT aggressive setup that might influence how any changes moving forward will be conducted, but that's a long rant to say that I think you do need a mid-window smoke on T side, or you very much want a mid-window smoke on T side when you're taking mid every round, and that is the fastest mid window smoke that I found. Moving on to the CT side is where I found a lot more interesting things. Just on a very basic Theorycraft side, I don't know if the CTs will want mid, but if you if you get on this like pillar, you aim at the top of this like erosion, and then you move over here, you can have a teammate drop you a smoke, and then aim at this, I guess, spike. These are twin smokes for both the T side mid doors on A side and the mid area, and I mean, this is just very basic smoke map control. You can imagine, send your fast CT out mid. These smokes are landing pretty much when the T's arrive, and then you can creep up and play any kind of angle you want mid. You can pair this into maybe a flash take for A doors. You can pair this into just B denial, and then you stack A. There's a lot of ways that you can play that. But there is obviously the gap. If you smoke here, the T's can just cross for free and then fight you from here. It's a tight angle, but they can still do it. And this is probably the most impactful Theorycraft that I can bring into this kind of session, other than maybe the A site walls. And that is an aggressive kind of B prevent take for the CT side. This originally started with, okay, can the CTs prevent the T's from getting through this staircase with enough time for the CTs to basically swing these angles and contest the entire staircase. I think if the T side, as far as my testing goes, I think if the T side immediately crosses, so like they're like maybe waiting half a second for the smoke to land, or they just completely ignore it and bunny hop across, they will beat the T's here. I think the T's timing on this angle right here is like something like 13 to 14 seconds. So this is really awkward and really risky to peek into what is going to be 50 different elevations and 50 different off angles that you will get peeked by. And I'm assuming this timing is probably the same, if not maybe a little bit quicker. And you're under a little bit more cover, but it's nothing like a full map control take. And the reason why I mention all those timings is because originally what I had found was just a basic, you come up to this and you just, jump through a smoke. It lands to smoke out the door. But if the T side is just full running and they have full intent of taking B map control with 3 or 4 people, there's no way this smoke stops them. They're just going to run through it if they know the timings and they understand the map. So my next, pursuit was, can I find a Molotov from up here that lands and does the same job? And the answer is yes. I might miss it a couple times here, but okay. So that's the idea. You maybe jump a little bit later, but this Molotov will spread if you hit it correctly to this area. The obvious problem with that is that the timing is not very quick, and you have to jump from this peg up to here and immediately strafe around, line it up, and then jump throw. If you do that really well and you hit the Molotov instead of missing it like that, I believe it will catch the T's timing and they will take damage running through it, which is obviously the intent of a Molotov. However, what I did later find is that if you jump on this peg, and this is another piece of feedback I'll have, in 2 ways. If you try to crouch jump onto some of these from different angles, it can be really stubborn with letting you up, in terms of like you getting stuck on invisible kind of weird stuff. And now that I'm actually trying to do it, it's not showcasing it like that. I felt like it feels like you hit like your knee on something sometimes. And then the second part of feedback I have for these is that there are 2 different elevations, like a cone shape, which I kind of get because it is a little bit slanted here. But if you ever try to line up utility on top of it, like I'm about to do, you can kind of see that I'm very quickly one framing up and down in different elevations. So if you jump up, you're like, okay, I've got my lineup, and then you move forward 1 step, and then immediately like that, you've completely like ruined your lineup. It can be a bit irritating, but that's just, it just don't line up utility here, forehead, I guess. But if you get up here, and this is kind of a good example of me getting stuck trying to get up, and you line up around here-ish, and you run forward and you jump through the Molotov. That lands deeper, and it is a faster lineup. This will land, in my testing, if you're really good, at something like a 9, an 8.5, and 9.5 seconds. And the T's fastest smoke lands, I think, about 10 or 11 seconds. If they're bunny hopping across, maybe they can get there at like 9.5, 10. But their 3rd, 4th, 5th timings, even their 2nd timing's going to be taking a lot of damage for that molly. So I think that if the CTs are fully intent on taking B, all it will take to kind of shut them down is this Molotov being thrown. I don't know why I was shift walking. This Molotov being thrown. Take 3. And then you can immediately have this player just fall back and then throw the smoke I was talking about earlier. and then they were mollied and smoked the entire time, and then you can send one CT upper, one CT lower, and you just, kind of swing, take the fight, you have the map control. And then from there, the only way for the T's to get to B is from this double door, and you'll have, one of your CTs maybe, who through this util just come and play this angle. You'll still have allocation for your mid guy, and if this angle is the only angle that the CTs have to worry about to get this map control, there's 2 smokes over here. The CTs can just resmoke this once, have their second CT that pushed with them, drop the second smoke, then resmoke this again, and then you have 3 full smokes of uptime on this very small choke point that is an absolute free kill if the T's push through, with the obvious caveat that they can come through this door set, but you can just have one CT hold this re-smoke, chaining it, and have double stack CTs around this door, or have double stack CTs around mid. I think there's a lot of ways for CTs to deny early B map control with this Molotov over the wall. So I don't really have any grand predictions to say that this is making the map unplayable in some way. This is a very easy doorway to reach if you just win a couple of fights mid, or use 1 smoke, 1 molly, or 2 smokes to take mid. I still think it's very viable to go B through this doorway, and what I think people are kind of underrating at times, I've seen some discourse on this, but like even just a molly here, a smoke that lands deep into this tunnel, you'd probably, yeah, that's fine. And then just 1 flashbang over, take this fight, swing out. You can plant the bomb. I mean, I've seen discourse around how the bomb site barrier isn't working perfectly right now. But I mean, you can still plant, right here, and you can just play this post plant from mid, and you can push up this lighthouse as well onto here. So I don't think that shutting down this staircase makes B unplayable by any means, but I do think that if this molly was not kind of thought about as something that is possible, followed up by a smoke, then I just wanted to bring that to light to inform any future map layout changes. One more thing about B, this is probably brought up, and I think this is just a problem of map barriers and how far you want to really push the freedom of being on these rocks. But this is kind of cheesy, I think. The fact that you can kind of like not only play this as like a headshot angle, but you can like be fully down here. And just from a player experience standpoint, if you make a couple of false steps here with what seems like very similar ground that you were just stepping on, it just insta-kills you. So I just thought I'd bring that up. Probably is already something FMPone's looking at, but just be careful on those rocks. Let's see. Do I have anything else? I mean, if you're interested in basic be clear nades, I think this is going to be decent strategy. I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory, just mauling off of here to molly off this entire section. But if you just come in here, aim at the center of the left side of the B, run forward and just left click throw the smoke, it will smoke this off. And then you can, you can plant all the way back here. Plant close to the smoke so you don't get wrapped around your teammate can cover you. There's a variety of ways I think that you can play this bomb site and take this bomb site and plant on this bomb site without taking the entirety of the map control required to kind of think yourself, to think that you have the bomb site clear. So I just wanted to bring that very basic smoke up. I would consider this smoke to be as simple and as easy to learn and as valuable as like something like a highway cross smoke on cache, where you just throw it off that white box. Same kind of idea here, just throw it off the left side of the B, and you will have a lot of cover from the map control you don't have if you were just taking forward, and you can maybe just force a plant. Maybe I'll just move into kind of final pieces of feedback while I maybe just try to jog my memory on some other random utility pieces people might want to know. I do very much enjoy that the map is structured in a way that lets, I think, a lot of unexpected flanks or pseudo flanks activate in a very short period of time. One example here is just this U-Haul being pretty much the same entrance, but actually behind any T's that would round this corner and start to scale the bomb sites. I already showed a Molotov that can be pretty easily thrown by just jumping above that rug, throwing it in this direction. But if you're a CT, even if you didn't play one U-Haul or you got mollied off U-Haul, you can jump out this window if you're the window player and be on the A side flank within, you know, something like 3 to 4 seconds, and, you know, activate, kill all these people who are not looking if they weren't holding for this flank. Same thing is true with any kind of CT mid push or B rotate. If you had someone who was, you know, very aggressively holding B doors, you know, they came up here, played this angle to deep into mid, they see nothing, they start to walk up, you know, nothing was heard B, they start to hear this A exit come in, immediately swing this, you can see people lining up the Molotov, or they're just running into the site, you immediately have a quick flank out of this bomb site once again. And on the flip side for the CTs, let's say that the Ts executed up here, or they split from mid, they didn't send anyone into the winery tunnels. You were playing maybe an angle like this, where you come back, you clear up here, you know, you're just anchoring, you start 1A, you're just anchoring. They execute, you just fall into this tunnels, you hold this, and then they take the bomb site, they're starting to set up post plants, and then someone maybe scales close door, you kill them unexpectedly, immediately swing up and kill another guy here. I think there's a lot of opportunity for kind of cute, unexpected, high impact timings, and I think a lot of maps kind of miss that these days. So I think that'll be very fun. And the same thing can be really said on B. I think B might be a better example because there's quite literally 3 different ways to kind of approach this bomb site and get bomb plants in unique ways. One of them is just kind of the standard go through doors, go through tunnels, plant, back up, and maybe just try to, you know, very much scrum it up into post plant, maybe retake mid and flank from there. There's an option where you very much full default, you send maybe 1 or 2 tunnels, you send 1 or 2 up here, you peek, you maybe take fights on these back windmill players, you scale up, and then you have basically full B map control. It's going to be very hard for the CTs to retake, especially if you send a T up these rocks right here and take this map control. And that's probably your most complete, optimal take. And then the third kind of idea that I have is just, okay, well, we got smoked off B stairs early. We don't have any hope of getting that map control. Let's just go here, molly smoke here. Maybe learn a smoke that smokes off, you know, something like this close windmill spot. And then you come out, you know, preempt this with a flash, preempt this. This is smoked off. You scale in, use plants. Smoke is supposed to land somewhere like here. And you have this approach to the bomb site as well. So I just very much enjoy the fact that there's a lot of diversity, not only in ways to take the bomb sites, but also ways to play defense, ways to quick flank. I think there's going to be a lot of good lurk plays on this map, which I believe, if I remember correctly, was one of the focuses and kind of pros of the first Santorini was all the lurk timings and kind of cute lurk plays you can make. I do very much also like that the map, this is going to sound super, maybe pretentious and kind of weird, but the map to me very much feels like a Counter-Strike map at its core. I always enjoy the way FMPO makes his spawns. I think in particular the T-spawn this time is fantastic. I see a lot of discourse around, you have to go out of spawn, you have to wrap around, you have to walk all this time for no reason. Why not just make the spawns forward on both cases? And while I get it, I also value that a lot of Counter-Strike maps, especially the original ones, were not created to be these kind of like optimized battle arenas like you see in a modern day Valorant map. I think Ancient is a very good example of something that was just created to be exclusively like a battle arena. And, you know, it can feel kind of lifeless at times. I do very much like the fact that you have, you know, this very pretty spawn that you run out. It's not taking a ton of time, and it's not just like you're running straight forward like on Old Nuke where they move the timings up. Like Old Nuke, they literally just move the timing straight because it was just a straight line on both sides. In this case, you have scenic spawns. You have multiple routes to take, at least in the T side. I could see the argument for CT side being moved up. I mean, you are just running a bit farther forward. But I also like don't buy the argument also that like rounds have to start fighting as optimally soon as possible. Like if a fight could start at 3 seconds rather than 5 seconds, and the map will play the exact same, always make it start at 3 seconds. I don't entirely buy that that's something that's optimal either. But that's getting a little bit rambly. This will probably be the end of the video. I'll edit on anything else that I forgot, but my impressions are very good. I mean, visually fantastic, although that's probably been beaten to death at this point. I think the gameplay is promising. I think any estimations on what the gameplay will feel like are probably not entirely pointless, but close to pointless without actually playtesting it. But yeah, thanks for watching.